This is Ben Thornton, and welcome to the first episode of the Good Questions podcast. I'm going to give you just a little intro about me and talk about what I'm hoping to accomplish with the podcast, what I'm doing it for, before we get into the episode with Nathan Nussbaum, my friend and someone I've mentored under for a few years now. So I'm a kinesiologist, a personal trainer. I help people with their health problems, with developing their physical fitness, with rehabbing injuries, and my own experience with dealing with injuries and trying to make progress using traditional methods, the stuff that I learned in school. It just kind of led me to being unsatisfied. So I've looked around and seen, oh, there's a lot of people doing really interesting stuff with the human body, with their training practices. And I wanted to learn from those people. And that's what I've done over the last 9-10 years. And this podcast is really a chance for me to ask good questions to those people that I've had the chance to learn from. I might venture into different fields of study than necessarily just the health and fitness world with this, but most of my connections are in that industry. So that will be kind of the main theme of the podcast, at least early on, and then we'll see where it goes. So besides this giving me a chance to discuss really interesting and important ideas, for me, it's also a chance just to practice my communication and have to go through the somewhat painstaking process of watching myself in conversation, because I'll be the one editing these videos and cutting out clips. And it can be a little jarring just to see myself stammer, or I think actually in this episode you're about to watch, because I haven't done a podcast for a while. I used to do one with Nathan on a somewhat regular basis. I felt myself, or really I noticed myself in the editing process, just kind of not having the clearest train of thought, like using kind of these filler words that I know I lean on when my internal processing is a little slower than I would like. And just for me to watch that, to experience that, and it gives me a bit of feedback. In the same way, when I video my own movements in the gym, I get some feedback. I get to see some things that maybe I did not pick up on the moment because my attention was elsewhere, or I was, present to certain aspects of what I was doing. But in being able to look back with a pretty objective kind of outside view, I can notice other things. So this is practice for me, but it is first and foremost just the chance to learn and to help others learn along with me. So if you like it, if you like the episode, if you have certain guests that you'd like to see on the show, comment them, message me. I'll put my contact links in the bio and whatnot for myself and the people I'm interviewing. And yeah, let's get into it with Nate. Oh, and I should also mention that we're doing an event, a MovMed event in San Diego, May 23rd and 24th. We're going to talk about it in the episode, but it doesn't come up until like halfway through or so. So I just wanted to kind of plug that at the top. Again, there's going to be registration links in the bio. It's about 3 hours each day. The first day is going to be a little more educational about the things you can do for yourself. The second day is going to be more receiving hands-on manual therapy from MovMed coaches that are there, including Nate, including myself. So if you're in the area, or if you're close by enough that you can travel out for a weekend, come hang out. It's going to be a good time. All right, here's the episode. Joined by my friend Nathan Nussbaum, founder, creator, CEO, whatever else he is, of MovMed. MovMed being a system that I've had the pleasure of learning from and working with for a few years now, and it really being a differentiating factor and educational process with my training and my own personal training and the way I work with clients. That's just allowed me to see things clearer, be able to work with the systems of the body a lot deeper. So for those of you who aren't familiar with MovMed, we're going to get into a little bit of what it is, what makes it different, what the rationale behind it is. I wrote out, I was trying to think of how would I describe it in one sentence, and I'll say it, and you can let me know if you think it is all encompassing or not. But MovMed is a training system dedicated to improving the body's structural support systems for sustaining healthy skeletal alignment, circulation, respiration, and nervous system function.
Does that track? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I don't disagree with any of that. I would suggest that we do have different avenues of pursuit, which is to say, like, because we're working on stuff that's so foundational to affecting people's baseline neurology, that is to say, like their rate of breathing, their heart rate, their mood, other things that are more subjective. It's important to note that many people, as they go through this, are going to experience one of two things. In the extreme cases, that is either a highly emotional reaction or a highly volatile visceral reaction. And it's not to say either are bad. It's just like some people are overwhelmed by how much perception they are capable of, and even more so overwhelmed by that perception being active. And it oftentimes is the case where people are selective about what they want to take away from the work, and they don't want to have as robust of a takeaway as I would like for them to have. So it's kind of piecemeal. Some people come to me and they're like, look, I want to learn how to relax. I want to learn how to start enjoying things without having to do, and consistently be on. But at the same time, many of those people are fixed into do in every other part of their life. And there's very little accommodation they're willing to make. And so the challenge that I have is, look, I need for you to understand what it's like to feel relaxed without having to do anything. And when I set them up for that, it's great, but it also comes with the discomfort of, well, this is very new. I don't have any idea how to make this last, nor do I know how to act from this state and feel like I'm going to be as effective as I would be from my normal state. So people are oftentimes resistive just because they don't have a lot of clear perception about either what's happening to them or what they're choosing not to engage with. And it's my job is either I ignore, selectively ignore at their request what we're going to be working on and what we're not going to be working on, or I take the issue to them and we go through a process that's a little bit like therapy where some people cry, some people get frustrated and angry, but at the end of the day, they get better at the exercise.
Yeah, and they probably learn something about themselves in a way that's just like not it's not as comfortable or not as cushy of a lesson, which is like the most important lessons tend not to be, right? And I think you do an excellent job of being able to like communicate in a way that is not necessarily like just in service of the person feeling comfortable. And it's something in our industry because we want people to like us as trainers. We want them to like continue to work with us for our own financial outcome and whatnot. It's very easy to fall into like just the people pleasing aspect of the training business. Um, and
Yeah,
I'm sure for you, like, it's been frustrating uh, to deal with people who have that almost expectation around this kind of work, and that, oh, this person is here to serve me and to make me feel better, to make me feel good. And you very much do that for people, but it isn't always cushy. Like I said, it can feel pretty extreme. I guess, like, is there a commonality, or are there pretty common problems that people are coming to you with? And maybe they're coming to you with like this pain and this pain and this pain, but what do you see as like the kind of overarching problems that generally people have that you're having to deal with?
totally. I would say that yeah, a similar notion to people not having an inside voice or not having a what's the word for it? Some people don't have a
Like,
they don't have their own conscience like rolling through their day. So what is the word for it when
there's like the internal locus of control, I don't, or maybe there's like inner dialogue.
yeah, inner dialogue. Thank you. Some people don't have an inner dialogue, and they literally go through each thing that they do on impulse or as a byproduct of how they feel, less so how they consciously organize their thoughts. And I think majority of people, when they're stuck in a habit, they don't have consciously organized thoughts around that habit, or they haven't made decisions that are good for them. Let's assume that that is not an option because they're coming to us for help. So they're not consciously aware of them. Now, I had two clients recently that I stopped working with, and the reason that we had difficulty was because they said one thing and meant another. And what I mean by that is one of them would cry almost every session, and we wouldn't be doing anything extreme or anything like that. I would just have her stay in a workout for a little bit longer, or I would put her in a position where I'd ask her why she's uncomfortable about doing something that requires she go outside for training. And getting into that conversation basically just put a lot of silence in the room. And I encouraged her to explore it. But at the end of the day, it was either she did the exercise or we chose a different thing. And she chose to do the exercise. So it was up to me to be like, all right, look, you haven't done it these last two times that we've met. I'd like for you to do it. It's going to be the thing that makes a difference. And when she did, the crying turned into smiling. The crying turned into exultation. She was excited about it. She was happy that she had made the effort. That being said, if it was a bad day and she was expected to go outside, everything would restart from one or scratch. That was pretty frustrating, but the thing that was more frustrating was just like the willful, um, like I'm gonna stay where I am in this understanding. This is not therapy. This is not whatever. And it's like, you're right, this is not therapy, but you keep crying when we have a session. So it's either we have because I'll ask her about, are you doing okay? You fine? And it kind of stops, it kind of pauses, and she's obviously not able to listen for that period of time. So it is a real issue. And that's why I posed to her, look, we can either ignore it or we can work through it. She says work through it. But at the end of the day, being culpable for that required a little bit of self-responsibility that just wasn't available to her. Maybe it's because she can cry in front of me, but she can't communicate the issue because I'm not a part of the issue and she doesn't trust me to that scale. This is not therapy, so on and so forth. Those were certain things she had made mention of, despite at the same time going to the opposite, being like, I'd like to, I'm working toward it and all these things, but she didn't have practice. So you're right. My voice, when I do talk to those people, it can be a little bit off-putting for some of them, but it also can be a motivator. I do my best to tell them from a place of care or a place of um, interest in their well-being. But oftentimes, when someone's in a state of discomfort, they don't care about how much you're trying to make them comfortable. They care that they're uncomfortable. And that's oftentimes the position it's in. And with the other client, uh, really successful, high functioning, new family, um, very, very active, very muscular, but everything about him was just tense. Everything about him was uncomfortable, from picking up his kid to walking 10 feet. Like everything just looked like, okay, you either have injuries or your body simply does not know how to relax with gravity. And it played into everything. Like he made a face when he wanted to smile. He had to spend a couple of seconds thinking before he replied. Like everything was a deliberate effort of conscious order, and there was no reflex. That being said, the things that he was finding value from were things that I wasn't teaching, and the things that I was teaching, he wasn't practicing. We'd have the value in the moment, but because it is so sensation inducing, it's so perception inducing, because it gives your brain a lot to work with. If the map before you start is chaotic, that's what you're going to work with. And no matter how much I want for someone to do something, if it's too chaotic for them to feel confident or to feel safe, sometimes people are a little too scared of themselves. And I think that's the biggest challenge. Like I love working with people who have a physicality, but I don't like working with people who are emotional about their physicality as opposed to investing in it. Like it shouldn't be something that uh, your physicality determines how you feel about any given day. It should be an encouraging factor where you get to explore your physicality, but shouldn't have to hold your posture. You shouldn't have to go and do something hard and effortful just to feel good about your body. There are certain things that should be woken up to and gone to bed with. And until such time, some people have stuff to work on, and that's where I come from. I'll tell people honestly, this is what I think is going on, and I think what you need to work on. And yeah, I could bullshit you and tell you, look, you're in great shape. You're very successful. You have a beautiful new family. These are great things in your life. You didn't call me for that. You called me to help you with your physicality. So I'm here for that.
Yeah. The would you say the chaotic internal map is kind of like the overarching thing that like you see when you work with most people? Um, or are there
Yeah,
some people?
sure.
Yeah, yeah,
One of my friends recently, we were having, I don't know, he came over, we were having some beers or something. And he had said to me just very oddly, just like out of nowhere, I don't know, he's maybe moving his hand around, but he's like, dude, that's so weird. Your eyes move and your head's not moving. And I wasn't like tracking anything like a visual tracking exercise. It's just he did something and my eyes tracked it. And I think I have the fortune of having a very alert nervous system that it doesn't drag behind itself very much, but uh, I definitely have some things like grinding my teeth and tensions that come with injury and or discomfort. And I've had to fix those injuries or absolve that discomfort or like make basically figure out how to go about my day without experiencing that discomfort. I had to learn what to do to put myself in a position that discomfort just wouldn't come up. And some of the things I'm really good at fixing, some of the things I still have to work on regularly, but at the end of the day, there is gratification from being able to resolve and or limit my own reactivity to self. As a kid, I was very, very reactive to my own discomforts. Like I had tremendous discomforts, light, brightness, sound. I mean, and you've heard me like we've been next to each other, even at my place here. I'm talking, some noise goes by, and I just get like confused. It's not all the time, but if I'm drained, then it's very possible I won't know what I was just saying or talking about if something loud came by. And that was my whole childhood, but it was much more reactive. I was way less comfortable. I was fried. And I think the only thing that is the difference between me and other people who I say like aren't ready for their perception is that um, maybe they had the luxury of distracting themselves or hiding from it or finding something that was just a little nicer to focus on. I could not focus on anything but it. It was the only thing I could focus on. And so I had to figure out, okay, while I'm doing all these things, while I'm reading, while I'm trying to go to sleep, while I'm eating, while I'm whatever, talking to people, how do I get myself to feel like I'm not being bombarded in my ears, my eyes, my skin, all that stuff. I
yeah,
did figure it out, but
yeah.
I
Your own internal chaos is really what stemmed the entire practice that you developed, and like what you're doing right now with just like the ball on the head, the ball on the shoulder. It's a really good, just like classic basic MovMed exercise in that you are just stimulating a reflexive response of support for the body, um,
yeah,
and you have enough of a connection or understanding of like how you feel now, how you feel after you do a practice to know the value, and then also to like to be able to at a incredibly acute detailed level understand like, oh, these ribs are supporting in this way, or these ribs aren't filled out, or if anyone's ever been coached by Nate, they understand that there's a level of detail in the way that you even see somebody else that I know can only come because of the way that you feel your own map, which is really a product of the amount of time you've spent kind of like looking at it and playing with it and piecing it together.
yeah. I mean, dude, I hate talking about this kind of stuff because I think it's silly. I only think it's silly because I think most people over-aggrandize these kinds of notions, and they say one thing when they don't really have an idea of what they're saying. I'm not going to ever call myself an empath. I'm not an empath in the way that like someone would be going around and I'm feeling your feelings, man. That being said, when I was very young, I had a really hard time being around people in pain. It's not like I would outright avoid it because I couldn't. Oh, that person's in pain. Disgusting. It wouldn't be like that. I'd feel genuinely bad. Like I would be on the borderline of like wanting to cry being around someone who was very clearly in pain. And I don't think it was because of what I was looking at. Because I mean, I grew up with siblings. I made my siblings cry all the time. Not to brag. But the end all be all there was that I was feeling bad for someone that I felt like, well, I felt some attachment to. I felt like I was experiencing or seeing or whatever, witnessing whatever it was they were experiencing. And as I grew up, I started to notice that there is not as complex a difference between myself and others as I think a lot of us like to believe. We are all the same stupid creature with just slightly different features. And the biggest thing that separates us is although all of us are looking to be individuals, we're desperate for being accepted by others. Like there's just this need for us to be welcomed. Desperate is, I think, a good word for it, not the best, but it's like food, it's like water. You have you have a need for it. And the way most of us arbitrate being social or being whatever, it's through means that don't feel genuine. They don't feel good. They feel half-hearted, or they give us a less exciting version of ourselves to deal with. Like, I want to be the best version of myself. That means that I'm going to be as engaged and or enthused or whatever when I'm talking to someone that I want to talk to. And if I'm not able to draw that out of myself, if I'm like locked down because of tensions or I'm locked down because of thoughts or emotions, well, my body needs to get used to not being a bitch like that. And if it's not just a thought that makes it happen, if it's putting a ball on my head for 10 minutes just to get my nervous system to respond to a little bit more oomph, that's when it has to happen. Like all of us need to start looking at the world as like a series of um, cause and effects, and most of us are honestly just walking around affected all the time, creating very little circumstance for us to either imbue someone else with a positive effect or effect we want, or imbue ourselves with that same thing. And it's as simple as just spending some time with a little bit of pressure, or spending some time with some quality breaths, or spending some time with a stressor that makes sense for your nervous system to work against. You don't have to do 1,000 squats to find stability. You just have to have your nervous system start processing information good. And honestly, most people are kind of dumb in their own bodies. And I like it when they stop second guessing themselves and trusting themselves, which I think may be the distinguishing factor between myself and those people the clients I just described, which is um, I'm excited to meet the better version of myself. And I realized that in order for me to meet that version, I have to reconcile I don't know him yet. So what's on the other side of the door of effort is usually an expected result, or like I'm working toward this for this. It's much more arbitrary when you're working towards a goal, but you don't know what that goal is. You just trust it. And I think that's a foundation of this process or this practice, which is probably our least tangible pillar. And that is, you got to learn to trust yourself and invest in the version of yourself that is better than the one that you're dealing with now. And I mean, if it's you, it's not like you're saying, I'm better than myself. You're saying you can do better than you have, or you can be more than you are. You can
Yeah, I
even
think,
throw a 40-pound ball a couple of feet.
I mean, some people can't, right? That just brings to mind like the injury rehabilitation kind of cycle. In that, you might that's a little more clear in that, say, I tear my Achilles I cannot walk, I cannot run. I know that I can get back there, but
Totally.
I don't know what the next day is going to be like. And I don't necessarily I can't have an expectation of if I do these exercises, I do my rehab, I do whatever, that I'm going to be exactly this much better the next day or in 2 days, even though I have an overarching like sense of like, this is where I want to be. You really do have to trust that process and kind of learn that, hey, I might actually need a day off here because I went kind of hard on my tendon yesterday, and I need to learn how to pace with my body. But there is like an uncertainty there that is pretty disconcerting for
Yeah.
people, especially when it's like a pretty major rehab. You know, I know a guy who just recently ruptured his patella. You start off with a locked out knee, and you just got to day by day just hope you get just a tiny little bit of flexion the next day and the next day, and you got to learn how to work with that. But it's similar in that you know that there's the better version coming. There's work to be done to get there, even though the body will heal by itself. And most people, unless you're an absolute just trash bag of a human, most people will be better as they age, even without that much conscious effort. Um,
Yeah.
but
Because they
when
learn.
you, I mean, it just like life kind of like kicks you in the ass enough if you don't respect it or respect yourself, that most people
True.
learn lessons by the time they're like 50.
I don't
Um,
think most people trust themselves, though. I think that would be the distinguishing factor. They may be less reactive or responsive to their own shortcomings, but still, like think about a midlife crisis. It comes as a byproduct of someone feeling like they have an inadequate standing in their own life. And then sometimes, or more often than not, people do something that's totally left, like totally out the norm, something they've never done or have never conveyed interest in. Um, my dad, for example, very anti-motorcycle, got a motorcycle when he was 50. Um, I think that you had described it in the injury sense. Majority of people come to me for value that they can't get elsewhere. They don't come to me because they've torn a tendon. They come to me because um, they've tried everything to get their body back in order, but no matter what, there's some degree of fight or I can't relax. I can't build muscle. I can't rest. Every time I try to do something, I start to feel rushed. More often than not, they don't really have a very good descriptor for it. They just say, I'm very stressed and I don't know why. I need to change my entire life. And then there's degrees of like grabbing onto the first thing that helps them float, as opposed to whatever like practice they need to develop that doesn't just allow them to float, but allows them to exist in a safe and stable fashion. And unfortunately, most of us think that it's a behavior to be learned as opposed to a depth of our personality. Like when we feel inadequate, it's our own voice that comes back to us that tells us what to do with the inadequacy. And more often than not, it's the same voice that feels inadequate that comes back to people. So how do they build off of their inadequacy if they're always speaking from inadequacy? Well, so I think at the end of the day, what I'm doing practically is I'm taking an opportunity for someone to experience a therapy that they've not experienced before because it's holistically both physical and mental. And instead of us trying to pry for, hey, I want you to cry through this, or I want you to really accept this and open your heart to this experience, fuck that. I don't care. You're going to spend about 10 minutes and your body's going to fight you on this because it's hard and it's difficult and you don't know how to manage the pace of things yet. And as you go through it, it's going to get harder and harder and harder until things click. When things click, you're going to notice it. I'm going to help you try to make things click. But until they do, we're both suffering together. And that's essentially the way that I practice. And more often than not, dude, like I work with people who have cancer. I'll work with people who have depressive disorders or people who have almost no social skills on the back end of their years and years of isolation. Like I'm not working with the person who's torn his ACL. I'm working with the people who don't feel like they're a tree bearing fruit. They feel like they're a tree in winter all the time, and there's no vibrancy. They don't get to experience the reward of being like, I enjoy life. They're always looking for it. That's who I help, and it's a more often than not a physical thing and not a mental thing, and that's why there's so much physical stuff in our work. We're not doing, and I want for you to accept the heavens into your next breath. And on the breath after that, I want for you to squeeze your little toes in the grass and just say, ah. Not what we're doing. We're not doing that. Although it's fun to do that as a joke, it's not what we're doing.
Well, it's a good segue to your workshop coming up, which I'm going to be at, which is May 23rd and 24th in San Diego at S10 Fitness, which is like 3 hours each day. I'm just reading off the post here. You say like simple tools for daily recovery and maintenance, reducing tension, improving movement,
I didn't write this
building
one. I can just explain it.
building strength without compensating, which is all like it's the kind of like very basic version of what you're talking about.
Yeah,
Uh,
that's what it sounds like when someone who doesn't speak English as their native language writes out an event descriptor. So what's going to happen is day one is going to be an EDU where people learn exercises. Day two will be a hands-on where people get manual therapy from some MovMed coaches. So it's going to be in the place that MovMed was developed, S10 Fitness. My boy Dave will be there. Not Dave Fine, who you know, but Dave. Have you met Dave Sten?
no, I know of him and I've seen his stuff, but I haven't met him yet.
Cool. Well, you'll meet Dave. Uh, yeah, and then at the end of the day, it's just designed to give some perspective to people. I mean, look, if I could bastardize my whole business and say we're going to do these things and these things fix these things, one, I'd be a charlatan, but two, I'd be much more successful. I'm not going to do that because I don't think that's something I'd feel rewarded by. Because most of this stuff is rudimentarily just do it, do it, do it until it starts to make sense. It's not like do it, do it, do it, and then tell yourself what it means. I'm not gonna bastardize this work by doing the whole and let the university and I don't know. I couldn't even think of words. I was mixing universe and energy 4 times in a row. But you get what I'm saying. Uh, we're going to be teaching people how to constructively interface with their stress response and how to unstartle themselves. And then the second day will just be watching and experiencing manual therapy of the movement variety.
Yeah. Yeah. It's cool to do in like a group setting because there is especially with some of the practices that are just like, you kind of just have to endure them and you just kind of have to do them until they start to click. It's kind of easier in a group setting just because it's a little bit of either competition or like kind of group encouragement. Uh,
Yeah.
Whereas when you're just like by yourself in your home, it's just like I gotta put this ball on top of my head for 20 minutes now or whatever. But giving yourself a little kickstart.
What does that say about me?
You're excited. We're all trying to be a little more like you, man.
Yeah, I don't know if that's the best.
But yeah, the group. I always have a good time at the group MovMed events, so I'm excited to see who comes out to it. And yeah, like you said, there's Dave Sten, Dave Fine will be there. Marsulio, what's his name again?
Mauricio.
Mauricio.
I know, but I like
Marsulio.
how you said it. We're gonna just keep it at that. I'm gonna try my best to repeat what you said, and the next time you ask me what his name is, it's that.
Yeah, there's definitely an L.
Marsulio.
There's definitely an
Yeah.
L. But yeah, the startle response, like that's I think a useful like people should know. Granted, they probably don't, but they should know when they're in that mode. But like people just are living in it, so they don't really recognize the signs or whatnot. Would you say like obviously everything we've talked about is kind of some version of like being stuck in startle, but are there tangible signs of it that you see? Like, is it the like the heavy neck breathing. That's maybe a classic sign. Or there are other signs that kind of come to mind as someone should like maybe take note if this is something they experience a lot, that hey, this is, you're probably in startle.
Irregularity, anything that happens out of a cycle of predictability. We can call it a rhythm if you prefer, but you can just see the cadence of people's breath, blinking, movement, if they are smooth through their movement or stiff, if it looks like they hold tension when they're thinking in place of being able to breathe. Um, yeah, I think a lot of people observe themselves while they're supposed to just be acting, and that doesn't serve them to experience themselves all that much. I had a
Yeah.
thought, but I forgot it.
Well, that's like, it's kind of like being in flow state is when you're just reacting. It's you're in reflex more than you're consciously trying to pre-tension or pre-plan your movements, which people talk about in sport. They maybe talk about in arts as well, but it is just like a lifestyle. When you're in traffic, ideally you're just responding, as opposed to like trying to overthink how you're driving.
Yeah, I think what's important to note is that flow state is oftentimes described by people as being something that is rhythmic. When I'm in flow, I'm rhythmic, sure, but I'm doing things at a level I couldn't do if I wasn't. And a lot of people are qualifying like very small rhythmic behaviors or very like low grade flow state is them being like, all right, I figured it out. I'm in flow state. I would describe it as being better and better and better in a reflexive state. So the more you can get to a point where you don't have to think through your behaviors and you can just depend on the underlying like instinct to take over, that would be great. But most people don't really train it. Like I don't know, man. I have a bitter perspective about what I'm looking at online, and I see a bunch of people I've built relationships with talking using the same words, but so many of them are like meaning such different things. But I think the foundation of any of this work, I mean, what I founded it for was to find my normalcy so that I could be comfortable and that I could provide comfort, where most people might like condition their environment to find that comfort. I wanted to condition myself to find that comfort. And I think that unless we do that, we're all going to be substandard versions of ourselves. We're not going to expect greatness from ourselves. We're going to expect comfort, which is mediocrity. So I don't know. I'm just tired of seeing all this bullshit. I would like for more people to be genuine about what they're trying to accomplish. Like, look, you have a very successful business online. That's probably why you're smiling on most of your posts. I don't think that it's fair to say that the influencers we have are doing as much of a service to teaching people how to be people. And I personally have trouble reconciling that. It's a frustration for me. Like, how do I teach people how to feel comfortable and calm when all the examples are comfortable and calm are for the most part dishonest?
Are there any specific like trends or like
No, why don't I
ideas
just
that
name
you're
people?
seeing? Just literally the way that they present themselves, you see is just like uh,
Yeah, there's
this.
plenty of trends. Um, all right, well, let's look at it like this. Behavioral commonality. Like if you look at a group, it's easy to see a consistency of behaviors among the different individuals of that group. So without saying anything one way or the other, let's describe a couple of groups. I'm going to say jujitsu. I'm going to say triathletes. Those are two sports that I played. Then I'll say FP and Goda. So for some familiarity, jujitsu, grappling, and triathlon is just cardiovascular. But they're both high functioning athletic environments, but they cater to a different populace. One of them is highly injured, ignores the shit out of their injuries, and for the most part is on edge all the time. But because of that, does their best to not show it. So you'll see like slight smiles on someone that's about to choke you out. Then you look at triathlons and you see high functioning people. I would say that there's probably more, I wouldn't say autistic people, but I would say people with a fixated personality and people who are very, very successful. I think some of the more successful business people who also participate in athletics find themselves in triathlon sport, mostly biking. Um, then we go to GOTA and FP. GOTA has almost everyone talking about using their same language. FP has almost everyone using the same body language. So there is a quality by which that these groups cater to either an aspect you look for or an aspect you have. And by way of that, they condition a bunch of people to look or reassure themselves or reevaluate, okay, this is what's important. Everything else is secondary. This is what's important because this is what I'm looking for, or this is what I found and this is what's around me. The problem with that is finding something because it makes sense to you doesn't mean that it makes sense to everyone else. And that's the overlying or the underlying movement thing. I do my best knowing that I'm very, very different from most people. I know this. I'm aware I'm not a typical. All right. That being said, the only way that I'm going to be happy is by seeing how I'm similar to other people. I'm not going to be happy by going around feeling like I'm different from this person because of X, Y, and Z. But I've realized the practice of considering myself similar, people take offense to that. Either it's because I'm assuming that they're supposed to be a different way, or I'm assuming that my way is correct, or whatever it is they're experiencing. I've realized that most people don't trust um, themselves. They trust a group, and they don't trust people who trust themselves because it oftentimes interferes with their individualized thought. So groupthink is easier. Groupthink make less energy. Groupthink less hard. So groupthink do. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Groupthink.
Groupthink do.
Groupthink do. Yeah, there's with like, I mean, functional patterns go to it's so easy to overlay this like blueprint of like literally shapes onto your body or onto
Yeah.
people's bodies and just revolve the entire practice around that, even around like certain ranges of motion or whatever. But it's just like it's all outside in, it's all like visually oriented, and it definitely does not help somebody like get to know themselves or like again like change
Well,
the way that they're interacting with themselves, besides it being like, oh, now I know how to work my muscle controls different.
it's like ballet without the generalization. So they do have a bunch of general points, but for the most part, those groups are so specific on what you're trying to accomplish, they miss a overarching big picture. So what I mean by that is ballet, it's not just a visual performance. You physically have to be able to achieve like go on your toes, maintain as much upright as you can. And those are postural behaviors, they're muscle behaviors, but at the end of the day, they're biomechanical, like you've met a standard. The difference is because there's not a objective marker of achievement, like a physical, I'm doing this activity. FP and GOTA don't entail like this is what your body should look like, or this is what your body should feel like after the fact, while also being able to do these behaviors. It's either it should look like this, and you're working toward being able to do those behaviors, or it should feel like this and you're working toward. There's never a collective like what it is that you're supposed to be at rest or what you could do from reflex. It's like, all right, try this, try this, try this. Now you're on to the next series of tasks that you're going to try and perform. You're never going to get to the state of being able to be ready. It's always practice, practice, practice. You'll never be able to stand on your toes in the end. It's always practicing to get there, but never there. I think At the end of the day, what really needs to happen is they need to be very clear on what it is they're trying to create physically. Like, for example, what is it called? Flowability. They have a clearer perspective of what the body's supposed to look like. That being said, I don't have thoughts on that. I have plenty of thoughts on it, but I've shared them. Um, I think there's a middle ground. I think most of us need to come to terms with the fact that our body does not answer to our brain in a conscious fashion. Although we'd like for it to, none of us are meditated enough to have instant access to our nervous system. It's just not there. So what we need to accomplish is we need to build out a reflexive setting or layout of our system through things that allow for us to do but not have to micromanage. We're participating, but I'm not fishing and also moving the fish that I'm fishing for. It's profoundly ridiculous that every single task is controlled because that doesn't make for any learning. It makes for fixated tensions. So MovMed is by and large just like if you come to me, you're looking for help, I'll be like, all right, I'll level you out relative. My bar of this person is this stress tolerant at a 7 out of 10. This person's this stress tolerant, 2 out of 10. I'm just giving you a vaguery. I don't actually do that, but I'm assessing someone and I'm looking and I'm like, all right, with this volume of stress, we're going to start really simple. All right, with this volume of stress, we're going to start to do some behavioral learning. I'm going to actually have you do tasks while we do it. At the end of the day, all it is, you're learning how to achieve stability through pressure. The value is indisputable because it keeps you balanced without having to use your mind to make it happen. And that's by and large what the other places are telling you to do, minus the reflexive part. And then afterwards, you get to go live your life. You get to go meet that person on a date with 10 times more energy, 10 times more stability in your system without even one thought toward how am I supposed to move my head or how am I supposed to keep my posture right? Just because you're chilling. Your body's chilling. It's letting it happen. So, yeah, guys.
And if you want to learn more about Nate's the techniques, the strategies, the training, MovMed.net, tons of educational resources on there. Is there a free is there a free resource on there too?
We have some on YouTube.
Yeah.
Uh, we do have a $1 access for the membership. So if you wanted to obviously not get a free thing, but have access to classes and video library, sign up for that and then just cancel it 29 days in. Um, yeah, I mean, we all get into this to help people. Some of us get stuck helping ourselves more than we help other people or whatever. I think at the end of the day, it only matters that we're helping people. That being said, um, I'd like to help more people who are ready to be helped, and I'd like to focus on people who um, aren't coming to me for a specific injury, just like overwhelm. Come, let's do some physical therapy and get out of your head or take the stick out of your ass and just learn how to be cool and find what flow state is, build on it, enjoy your life. Don't arbitrate. This is just silly shit. It doesn't need to be your entire life. Come get some work in and then enjoy the 23 and a half other hours of your day.
I guess the maybe the last question I'll ask then is like what are the traits out of the people who like progress with you well? Like what do you notice people like when they come to you and you train them and it just like it goes well, it kind of you see them ramp up in a way that makes sense to you. Like do you see some commonalities there?
Yeah, a lack of pride. Not even with me. Like it's something I'll have with myself where it's like I will oftentimes tell myself, I don't know what to do here. And when I'm doing the exercise, knowing that I don't know what to do there doesn't make me shrink into a ball and hide in my shell. It makes me embrace options I probably wouldn't have thought of previously. And the people who I work with, yourself, Sebastian, Dave, and then the clients that I really thrive with, the thing that they do is they do something very similar where maybe they don't say I'm wrong here or I don't know what I'm doing, but they definitely don't fight with the same uh, stubbornness that most people do, that keeps them from seeing the truth. So being honest with yourself at the cost of being happy about what you're being honest about.
Yeah, just not holding on to whatever ideas you had about how things were supposed to work all that strongly. um, cool, man. Well, again, May 23rd, 24th, San Diego S10 Fitness will be there. Come on out. People sign up on the website.
Yeah, well, they can send us a link. I'm gonna have the sign up posted in some fashion. I'm not exactly sure, but uh, just DM or email, and we'll send you the link direct. We're sending out some discounts now for the next few people who sign up. So reach out and you'll get a discount.
Sweet. Well, see you there. Thanks for your time, man.
Thank you.
Catch you later.
All right, big dog. Have a good rest of your day.
You too.